All right, so a lot of people have been saying, oh, Mr. Bullens, I was out for AIG yesterday. I missed. You know that every day I start off and review the stuff that we've already talked about. Like, every time. Stop worrying. I'm not going to leave you behind. That's not how we do things here. You can always go back and watch the videos that I post too. We talked about the body systems, and before we could really start talking about that, we talked about unicellular versus multicellular organisms. What makes unicellular organisms so unique? Abby. Unicellular. Unicellular is one cell, and they do everything inside that one cell, even poop. We watched the paramecium poop. Right? And then a rhino, but that's multicellular. Another unicellular. Yep. That's right. Any damage to a unicellular organism, it is probably not going to make it because they are not built. They don't have other cells to help repair them. Yep. They complete all of life functions in one cell. What do you remember about multicellular, Elishba? Specialized cells. If that's the first word that comes to your mind, you're doing great. What else? Sakura. Multicellular organisms are allowed to be injured to an extent because there's zillions of other cells there to replace it and repair it. You are correct. You are correct. And as we moved on, we saw that they do have a couple things in common. They need to eat, they need water, and they pass DNA off to their offspring. Hopefully you put that in your Google Slide Jamboard somewhere, or some of that, because again, those will get graded at some point sometime soon. We're not watching the paramecium, we're not watching the rhino again. Now, when we talk about these specialized cells, you might have very special cells that are bone cells. This is one bone cell. It's special because it is a bone cell. When I get a group of these, Kagan, this is a group of bone cells, they're called tissue. Put enough of those tissues together, you're actually going to form that specific organ, whether that organ is the bones, the muscles, the eye, digestive parts of your body. That just depends on what kind of tissue you're putting together. When you put those organs together, you have organ systems. So if I take all the organs that we will learn tomorrow and put them together, I have the digestive system. If you put all of the systems together, Clara, digestive system, circulatory system, nervous system, skeletal system, muscular system, and so on, you put all those together, you get the actual organism. Or the actual organism, which is very important to understand. Yesterday, we talked about the skeletal system. We said that the skeletal system protects us. You've known that since second grade. We know that the skeleton helps us move. You've known that since second grade. The whole part about giving us our shape, I think we all knew that. We've just never really said those words out loud until we saw on that French road where they had dug up that body. And none of us looked at that and said, I think that's a snake. No, you were like, oh, that's a person curled up that died there. And you knew that because it was the shape of a person. When I was hiking out to the lake to go fishing, and they had just recently taken, like maybe a month earlier, taken a tractor and mowed down all the tall grass to get to the lake. And as I was walking along, I looked to my left and I see this skeleton, and it's cut in half. Half of it was over here and half of it was over here. And I looked at the two halves. I picked up the back half, I picked up the front half, and I put it together. I'm like, oh wow, this was a snake. And when I looked and noticed that the snake had fangs, I said this was a poisonous snake. Now, I don't know if it was a copperhead or if it was a rattlesnake. I'm going to say copperhead because I was a little too far away from Hanging Rock. It was in King. I guess that's close, but I'm still going to say it was probably a copperhead. It's the only other venomous snake that I know of that lives in North Carolina. Copperheads, rattlesnakes. I also looked at the tail to see a rattle. I didn't see anything that looked like that, but that's not bone. That's attached with something else that would have been eaten or pecked off or broken down by bacteria. But it was unique finding that, and I knew it was a snake. It was very obvious what it was. You could see it. You could tell what it was. So they also, the skeletal system makes those red blood cells that go into our circulatory system that is so very important as well. Okay. Yesterday, I know for us in here, we started off with a little bit of the muscular system. I'm going to cover that again today because I don't know where we were. If I'm covering something you've already heard, just listen. Because there's some people in here that weren't here at all that'll be very happy to hear it. And there's some people that are probably at home that didn't even watch the video from the other day. Maybe they'll watch today's and get some information. Muscles are what allow us to move. The fact that our arms and hands are moving right now to write notes or raising our hand to stretch or question, I'm not too sure. Your little books? Yes. Some of the movement that we do, we learned yesterday, is on purpose. We choose to do it. I choose to walk around the room and talk to you when I'm teaching, unless I'm doing a video. I try to stay close to the microphone. You choose to raise your hand when you have questions. You choose to walk down the hall. You choose to get up and move around the room even when you shouldn't be. Those are all voluntary movements. Voluntary movements. You're choosing to do that. There are some things going on right now that we typically don't control. And as soon as I start talking about these things, you're going to become very self-conscious, and you're going to start doing one of them more than you would ever possibly do in a normal instance. Breathing is something that I can control. Thank goodness. If I drop my phone at the bottom of the pool, and I was like, Kaylee, I'm old and tired. I don't want to get that. Will you dive down there and get that? And she'd say, sure. And she would jump in and hopefully hold her breath. She's choosing to do that, right? So you can take control of your breathing, but most of the time it's involuntary. Blinking is also another thing that we typically do involuntarily. Now everybody's blinking like this. It looks like you guys are sending me a signal like, are you in danger? Blink 3 times. I don't know what's going on. It's a bunch of people winking at me right now. It's a little weird. But again, it's something that we can't. The other thing that happens is our heart beating. That one is one that we cannot control. We don't have control, and we really don't have a way for us to take control over our heartbeats. Now, just for a moment, I want you to imagine that you did not have control over breathing, heart beating, digesting, and blinking. Breathing, blinking, digesting, heart beating. And you had to think about all of those. For just like 30 seconds, sit at your seat and think, blink, breathe, heartbeat, digest. Blink, breathe, heart. I can't even say it, I'll get mixed up. Say that to yourself and still take notes.
Mr. Bullitt,
Yes, ma'am.
we get 100 pounds for checkout, please.
You got it.
Thank you.
Blink, breathe, digest, heartbeat. Think about that. And write notes at the same time. I can't do that. I can't blink, breathe, heartbeat, digest, and write. It really kind of gives me a small headache thinking about all that. Voluntary muscles I control. Muscular movement of your bones is something that you typically control. We did talk about yesterday how every once in a while our brain might take over and make us involuntarily move our skeletal muscles. It's very, very cold outside. Kaylee starts to shiver. She really doesn't have control of that. Her brain says to her muscles, hey, it's too cold. Our internal temperature is getting lower than we need to be. Start shivering to generate some heat. We also have involuntary muscles. Thank goodness our heart beating and breathing most of the time and blinking most of the time are things that we don't have to think about. Otherwise, you would never even be able to sleep. Because if you fall asleep, you would stop thinking about breathing and heart beating and you would stay asleep for a very long time. You wouldn't have to take the test next week, but you would be asleep for a very long time. Now, 3 important muscles, and I know everybody's waiting for me to change it, and I will change it, and I will pause it so you can take notes. Skeletal muscles. Shockingly, Kennedy, skeletal muscles are attached to your skeleton. They are the ones that allow you to move. Cardiac muscles are the ones that are associated with your cardiovascular, that is your heart. It is the involuntary muscle that moves things, and then there is smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is what surrounds your internal organs like your digestive system. Trevor, he chooses to chew the Pop-Tart. The moment he decides to swallow, most things become involuntary. His tongue kind of involuntary moves the food to the back of his mouth and down his throat. Once it's in his esophagus, it starts to squeeze it down through peristalsis into the stomach. Surrounding the stomach is more muscles that kind of squish your stomach together, like churning that chewed up Pop-Tart into like a really gooey mess. Otherwise, we'd have to do this after lunch every day. And if we had to do that after lunch every day, then it would be a very long ride. After it leaves your stomach, this gooey mess goes into your small intestine. Your small intestine is what takes out all of the nutrients. It moves through, thanks to smooth muscles, into your large intestine. Your large intestine is where it takes out the water that's left over from that waste. We said yesterday in this part of the digestive process, if your body leaves too much water there, you have diarrhea. If your body takes too much water out, you get constipated. Neither one of those are fine. That's why you need to eat healthy foods, keep your internal gut system healthy, and you need to drink plenty of water. Otherwise, your body will take care of that for you in not such fun ways. So smooth muscles are muscles that do not connect the bones. They surround organs, and they are involuntary. So if I pull up this, I wrote muscles as the main organ. This diaphragm word is actually the diaphragm. That is the muscle that goes right up under your lungs, and it contracts and relaxes, and it's what causes you to breathe in and out. Most of the time, Kagan is allowed to let her body do that normally for her when she needs to hold her breath. When she's going off the diving board into the 12-foot end of the pool, she can hold her breath until she comes back up, so you can take control of that muscle, which is very important, but 90% of the time it is involuntary. I will let you get this first part copied down, then I will pull it down and we'll talk about the function, and then I'll come back to the people that are at home as well. So if you're at home watching this, you have to pause. I can't pause YouTube for you. All right, let me go back to our slides. I'm going to slide this down. Types of muscles and their function: voluntary, involuntary, skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, cardiac muscles. What is the function of the muscular system? Well, it controls all the movements in the body. I hate this thing when it does that. Generates heat. I'll pause it there. So I know a bunch of us are down here closer to the bottom now, if I'm not mistaken, and we're looking at the functions. What does the muscular system do? Elishba, movement is always a great answer. It really is. It generates heat. It maintains your body's temperature. You don't always have to shiver. Sometimes the muscles in your skin, the little teeny tiny ones around your pores, open up to let you sweat so that it will cool your body off. Sometimes those pores close really tightly and you get those little goosebumps on your arms when you get really cold. Who's gotten those before? That's just the pores closing up really tightly. Your body doesn't want to let any of the moisture out because that would cool you off. Protecting your body entrances and exits. If I try to poke Charlotte in the eye, would her eye close? Involuntarily. Protecting you from things getting in your eye. That's what it's there for. And then there's some things in your stomach that are muscles that are protecting food from going out of your stomach and sometimes into your stomach. It's a little flap that controls that. Now, the right time that flap opens and all of it comes flying the other way, and we'll get to look at that later on. That's it for the people at home. Smash the like button and subscribe. Click the notification bell.